Today we are discussing chronic pelvic pain, and pelvic pain could be divided into two types depending upon the duration of its existence. Acute pelvic pain is pelvic pain which lasts for less than 6 months. And what is the etiology? What are the causes of acute pelvic pain? In premenarche, there are congenital causes, that is hematocarpus and hematometra, which is because of imperforate hymen, and ovarian cyst. It may cause torsion, rupture, or hemorrhage and malignancy, which may cause APP, and abdominal tuberculosis and non-gynecological causes. In young adolescents, most acute pains are also of non-gynecological origin. They may be related to urinary tract, gastrointestinal, or abdominal tuberculosis. Ovarian tumor, as we know, the most common ovarian tumor encountered in children and adolescents is dermoid cyst. Teratoma, dysgerminomas, and germ cell tumors. Acute pain in dermoid cyst can occur with infection or distension or torsion. The diagnosis is easy and laparotomy is required. So in reproductive age group, that is 20 to 40 years of age, causes are obstetric causes, abortion. Pain occurs in inevitable and in septic abortion. In inevitable abortion, it is associated with severe vaginal bleeding, and the diagnosis is obvious. Clinical diagnosis could be made. Septic abortion. In septic abortion, the woman suffers from high-grade fever, severe lower abdominal pain, and vomiting. And on examination, foul-smelling vaginal discharge may be present. And in ectopic pregnancy, acute ectopic pregnancy is associated with severe abdominal pain and short period of amenorrhea with or without vaginal bleeding. Ultrasound reveals free fluid in the abdominal cavity and the pelvic mass, and it requires an emergency surgery. Red degeneration of the fibroid. And in a woman with early pregnancy develops acute abdominal pain and sometimes vomiting. So the uterus, in this case, uterus is more enlarged than that of the period of gestation, and it is tender. Ultrasound reveals the presence of fibroid. Because of increased vascularity of the fibroid during pregnancy, red degeneration of fibroid can occur. In this case, no surgery is needed and treatment is conservative, that is NSAIDs are sufficient. In twisted ovarian cyst, this requires immediate surgery. Acute hydramnios, it is more common in multiple pregnancy. Acute hydramnios presents with enlarged uterus in mid-pregnancy and abdominal pain. Ultrasound shows multiple pregnancy and hydramnios. Invariably, patients goes into spontaneous abortion. And molar pregnancy. Here, molar pregnancy is because of sudden enlargement of the uterus or because of increased vascularity. There may be hemorrhage or perforation of the uterine cavity. So, in this case, treatment is evacuation of mole. Retention of urine. Retention of urine occurs due to retroversion of a gravid uterus or hematocele of ectopic pregnancy or fibroid or ovarian cyst impacted in the pelvis. It requires temporary catheterization in retroverted gravid uterus and surgery for the other conditions. Abruptio placentae, it occurs 20 weeks of pregnancy, and it is associated with severe abdominal pain and vaginal bleeding. In these cases, clinical diagnosis and ultrasonography are helpful in the diagnosis. So what are the gynecological causes in reproductive age group? Dysmenorrhea is cyclical and it is related to menstruation. Pain is located in the lower abdomen and is often spasmodic. So the drug of choice for dysmenorrhea are antispasmodics and not NSAIDs. Antispasmodics relieve pain and no investigation is required. Mittelsmans syndrome is mid-cycle pain not lasting for more than 12 to 24 hours around the period of ovulation, and the pain is located in the iliac fossa and may be accompanied with slight vaginal bleeding. Analgesic may be required for severe pain. So PID, pelvic inflammatory disease. Acute pain is felt in the lower abdomen but may spread upwards in generalized peritonitis. Pelvic peritonitis comes under PID and it may progress into generalized peritonitis. Pain is mostly bilateral and abdomen is tender in acute PID. Endometriosis. Acute pain in endometriosis is either due to rupture of the chocolate cyst. Chocolate cyst is endometriosis in the ovary, which in turn forms into a cyst. This is chocolate cyst. We will discuss in topic endometriosis. Or pain in acute endometriosis may be due to leak of the blood into the peritoneal cavity. Ultrasound detects the cause, and laparoscopy or laparotomy may be required for treatment. And hyperstimulation of ovary, hyperstimulation of induction of ovulation, that is hyperstimulation syndrome. The cause of acute pain is obvious and its severity is related to the endogenous or exogenous human chorionic gonadotropin, which is used in ovulation induction and in IVF. It is more severe if pregnancy, that is mostly in multiple pregnancy, results from IVF program. Hyperstimulation syndrome occurs 8 to 10 days following HCG hormone injection or early pregnancy, and severe cases requires hospitalization, IV intravenous fluid, and sedation. Uterine fibroid. Normally, uterine fibroid does not cause any acute pelvic pain unless it is pedunculated fibroid which undergoes torsion of the fibroid, or if capsule vessel ruptures with intraperitoneal hemorrhage, it may result in acute pain. Otherwise, it doesn't cause any acute pelvic pain, and the treatment is surgery. Ovarian tumor. Torsion or infection of the dermoid cyst and rupture can cause acute pain in the abdomen. A malignant tumor is mostly silent until an advanced stage. So what are the non-gynecological causes? There is retention of urine in gynecology occurs when a tumor gets impacted in the pouch of Douglas. And other urological conditions like acute cystitis and bladder stone can cause severe pain in the suprapubic region, and ureteric colic is felt along the ureter on one side. Gastrointestinal pain is often colicky and is associated with gastrointestinal symptoms, and appendicitis can confuse the diagnosis, but the pain is localized to right iliac fossa. Abdominal tuberculosis may also cause acute pelvic pain. And so what are the causes in menopausal and postmenopausal women? Pyometria occurs in endometrial cancer following radiotherapy when the cervix gets stenosed or due to tubercular and senile endometritis. So pyometria may result from endometrial cancer or tubercular endometritis or senile endometritis, and the pain is localized to the central portion of the lower abdomen, that is where the uterus is present, and may or may not be accompanied with fever, since pyometria is accumulation of pus in the uterine cavity. Ultrasound shows an enlarged uterus with fluid, and treatment is cervical dilatation and drainage. Endometrial curettage later will reveal tuberculosis or cancer. Ovarian tumor is invariably malignant in old women and is of late occurrence. So sarcoma in a fibroid is diagnosed when the fibroid starts growing rapidly with pain and sometimes postmenopausal bleeding, which is rare. Retention of urine occurs in postmenopausal women due to bladder neck obstruction, might be because of prolapse of the uterus, and requires drainage and appropriate management. Acute retention of urine also causes lower abdominal pain. So, what is the history and clinical examination? Age, parity, and menstrual history should be recorded. The mode of onset of pain, its location, severity, duration, radiation to the other area should be inquired. It is just like any acute abdomen, we will take the history. The relation to menstrual history is important. History of fever, vomiting, diarrhea, as well as urinary symptoms are also relevant while making the clinical diagnosis. So we have to differentiate between gynecological causes, non-gynecological causes, that is renal and gastrointestinal causes. And clinical examination and relevant investigation should be undertaken, and management is we have to treat the cause. So coming to chronic pelvic pain, the definition is chronic pelvic pain refers to acyclical pain. It is not cyclical, that is, it doesn't occur every time in a month like dysmenorrhea. It is acyclical pelvic pain of duration of more than 6 months duration, not 3 months. It is 6 months duration, and it is unrelated to menstruation or intercourse or pregnancy. And the chronic pelvic pain might be continuous or intermittent, and the pain should involve a pelvis, that is from below umbilicus up till the buttocks, that is pelvis, abdominal wall, atop below the umbilicus, lower back, and around the buttocks. So it should involve abdominal wall, atop below the level of umbilicus, lower back, pelvis, and around the buttocks. And the incidence of CPP is about 15% of women complain of chronic pelvic pain. So what is the etiology? Gynecological causes, they are often organic but can be functional. Organic is specific lesion is present, functional obvious lesions are not present. So the well-organized organic lesions are pelvic endometriosis and chocolate cyst of the ovary. They contribute to 30 to 35% of chronic pelvic pain. And in ovaries, ovarian adhesions may be present, or polycystic ovarian disease may be present, or residual or remnant ovary syndrome, or because of any ovarian tumors. They might be either benign or malignant. They might be dermoid cyst, or they might be late stages of malignancy. Tubal fallopian tube. What are the tubal causes? That is chronic PID or tubal adhesions, postoperative adhesions, parametritis due to infection or malignancy. Pelvic tuberculosis and adhesions. The uterine causes are uterine fibroids and adenomyosis, pyometra in menopausal women, and fixed retroverted uterus. Because of tension over the ligaments, because of extension of the ligaments, retroverted uterus may cause low backache and pelvic pain. So what are the functional causes? Congestive dysmenorrhea, Mittelsmans syndrome, and postcoital pain. And other causes are chronic pelvic pain syndrome. CPPS is chronic pelvic pain syndrome, and pelvic varicose or dilated veins. Pelvic varicosities or dilated veins in the pelvis. It occurs in 30%. Other non-gynecological causes are intestine, that is gastrointestinal and renal causes. Intestinal tuberculosis, diverticulitis, colitis, appendicitis, irritable bowel syndrome, which account for 20% of the cases, carcinoma of the rectum, chronic intestinal obstruction. And the renal causes are ureteric colic, bladder stone, urinary tract infection, cystitis, chronic retention of urine, carcinoma, urethral diverticulae, or polyps. And the skeletal muscular causes are joint pains. There is referred pain in skeletal muscular conditions, and there are degenerative changes like scoliosis, kyphosis, osteoporosis, spondylolisthesis, myofascial pelvic pain syndrome. These may also result in pain in the lower abdomen and the back. And other causes are hernias, and neurological causes are herpes zoster, nerve entrapment, nerve compression, referred pain. And other systemic causes are fibromyalgia, abdominal migraine, lymphoma, sickle cell disease, and acute intermittent porphyria. Scar pain and scar endometriosis may also be present. Nerve entrapment in phalangeal incision can cause chronic pain, which sometimes lasts as long as 2 years. Psychosomatic causes are anxiety and depression. Now we'll discuss each cause in detail. Pelvic congestion syndrome. What is pelvic congestion syndrome? It is dilatation of veins and stasis of blood in the uterine or the ovarian venous plexus, which results in chronic pelvic pain, heaviness, pressure, dyspareunia, and exacerbation of pain after prolonged standing and sitting because of venous congestion, accumulation of blood within the veins. So the pain may be consistent, dull, aching pelvic pain, and it is accentuated before menstruation because of increased vascular supply towards the pelvic organs, and it is associated with low backache, dyspareunia, and postcoital ache, and it is associated with various degrees of premenstrual tension. And the diagnosis is laparoscopy and venography. Ultrasonography and Doppler may reveal varicosities of the pelvic veins, and dilatation of the uterine and the ovarian veins with reduced venous clearance may be present on Doppler. So the pain is consistent, dull, aching pain, and it is accentuated before menses, and it is associated with low backache, dyspareunia, and postcoital ache, and it is associated with various degrees of premenstrual tension is present. Diagnosis is laparoscopy and venography, ultrasonography, and Doppler. Doppler reveals varicosities and dilatation of the uterine and the ovarian veins with reduced venous clearance. So what is the treatment of pelvic congestion syndrome? The treatment is medical management. It includes suppressive therapy with low estrogen containing oral contraceptive pills or GnRH agonists. So high dose progesterone is medroxyprogesterone acetate 50 to 300 mg per day. 50 to 300 mg per day up to 18 months, or venoactive agents such as micronized purified flavonoid fraction, that is Daflon 500 mg BD for 6 months. It increases the venous tone, or other venoactive agents like diethyl ergometrin, which is a venoconstricting agent, thereby decreases the varicosity. So medical management is suppressive therapy using progesterone, that might be medroxyprogesterone acetate, or low dose estrogen containing pills, or GnRH agonists, or venoactive agents such as daphlon or diethyl ergometrin, and other modalities are venous embolization or psychotherapy, that is explanation and reassurance of the patient. So briefly, what are the gynecological causes? And those are endometritis. In this case, the associated features are dysmenorrhea and dyspareunia. In PIDs, there is history of STD or acute PID, IUCD usage, or dysmenorrhea and dyspareunia. In adhesions, there is history of previous surgery or PID or endometriosis. In adenomyosis, there is heavy menstrual bleeding and dysmenorrhea. In ovarian remnant syndrome or trapped ovary syndrome, there is history of hysterectomy or cyclical exacerbation of the pain, which is superimposed upon chronic pelvic pain. Pelvic congestion syndrome, here there is dyspareunia and pain on prolonged standing. So the urological causes, in interstitial cystitis, there is dysuria, increased frequency of micturition, pain on filling the bladder, and it may be associated with irritable bowel syndrome. Whereas in urethral syndrome, there is dysuria, increased frequency of micturition, incontinence, and post-voidal fullness of bladder. In chronic or recurrent UTI, there is dysuria, increased frequency, and systemic symptoms like high-grade fever associated with chills and vipers. So, in gastrointestinal, musculoskeletal, and neurological causes, the gastrointestinal causes causing CPP are irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease. In irritable bowel syndrome, there is altered stool frequency or consistency, altered stool passage, bloating and passage of mucus. In inflammatory bowel disease, along with all this, there is bloody diarrhea. In musculoskeletal conditions, there is pain with movement, and they will worsen by the end of the day, as seen in our pelvic congestion syndrome, and there are trigger points where pain is more. And neurological conditions, the location depends upon the nerve involved, and the bladder and bowel dysfunction may be associated with CPP. So, other causes, idiopathic, no cause is found for chronic pelvic pain. In quite a few cases, no cause of CPP can be detected. That is in 35% of the cases. Even laparoscopic findings appear normal, and extensive investigations are undertaken, and they don't reveal any definite cause. It is observed that even when a lesion is detected, it may not be the cause of chronic pelvic pain. That is, loose peritoneal adhesions, mainly post-operative adhesions, do not cause chronic pelvic pain, and adhesiolysis does not cure the symptom. So they remain idiopathic. So what are the clinical features? So they depend upon the etiology. In endometriosis, chocolate cyst of the ovary, dull lower abdominal pain associated with dysmenorrhea, menorrhagia, and dyspareunia might be present. It is important to note that small lesions with fibrosis may cause only dull chronic pain, and they doesn't have any menorrhagia, dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia. And tender nodules are felt in the posterior fornix, and tender pelvic mass with the above history may help to recognize the clinical condition of endometriosis. That is, on pelvic examination in pouch of Douglas, tender nodules may be present. Along with ultrasonography, we can confirm the diagnosis. So, ultrasonography confirms the presence and the extent of pelvic mass. On laparoscopic examination, it is useful not only to confirm the unsuspected clinical diagnosis but also to coagulate the lesion. So it is both diagnostic and therapeutic. So unsuspected clinical diagnosis but also to coagulate the lesion and to excise and drain the chocolate cyst with the help of laparoscopy. Surgical removal of chocolate cyst by laparotomy. Laparotomy means that is you do an open surgery. Laparoscopy means you use laparoscope. And surgical removal of chocolate cyst by laparotomy may be necessary if the cyst is huge. Correlation of the macroscopic findings with histological and clinical findings is rather poor and not related to severity of pain and other symptoms. So the size of the lesion and the severity of the symptoms may not correlate. So ovarian adhesions and polycystic ovarian disease. Ovarian adhesions and polycystic ovarian disease cause dyspareunia besides chronic pelvic pain. Laparoscopy confirms ovarian adhesions causing CPPS, and the adhesions can be divided, and in PCOS the cyst can be punctured by laparoscopic coagulation. Chronic pelvic inflammatory disease, chronic PID. So the pathology is due to adhesions and local production of substance that modulate pain. It results in chronic pelvic pain. Chronic PID causes chronic persistent lower abdominal pain, dyspareunia, dysmenorrhea, menorrhagia, and infertility. The uterus is retroverted and it is fixed because of the adhesions. Thick and slightly tender mass will be felt in the pelvis. If medical treatment fails, removal of the adnexus or hysterectomy would be justifiable. If the ovaries need removal, the woman should be offered HRT to prevent menopausal sequelae. So, peritoneal and postoperative adhesions. Peritoneal and postoperative adhesions, as we discussed, not all adhesions cause pain. Loose adhesions which do not restrict the mobility of the abdominal viscera remain asymptomatic and do not require any adhesiolysis. Rather, breaking these adhesions may result in reformation of denser adhesions. So, flimsy adhesions may, if adhesiolysis is done, they may result in denser adhesions which may cause persistent chronic pelvic pain later. So dense adhesions and adhesions which restrict the visceral mobility lead to chronic pelvic pain. Usually these dense adhesions are vascular, and flimsy adhesions there is only fibrotic tissue. So if these adhesions and if dense adhesions entrap the ovaries, they may result in pain. It is observed that some adhesion tissue contain nerve fibers, and these adhesions, when stretched during the movement of the viscera, can elicit pain. So adhesions containing ovaries or adhesions entrapping the nerve fibers cause pain. So pelvic tuberculosis, it is not rare in India. Apart from chronic pelvic pain, women often suffers from amenorrhea. Other symptoms like amenorrhea, oligomenorrhea, and infertility coexist in pelvic tuberculosis. Patient has poor wind, ill health, menstrual disorders, and ascites, and endometrial curetings may in some cases reveal tubercular nature of the infection, and laparoscopy may be necessary to confirm the diagnosis. Treatment is anti-tuberculosis treatment is needed. PCR stains diagnose tuberculosis and histology fails to do so. That is when tubercular lesions are not noted in endometrial security, then we may go for PCR for diagnosis. Uterine fibroids and adenomyosis. Uterine fibroids and adenomyosis cause dysmenorrhea and menorrhagia. Dull abdominal pain is due to heaviness and pelvic congestion, and it is at times associated with PID. Submucous fibroid can cause colicky pain, and interstitial fibroids cause dysmenorrhea more than subserous fibroids, which cause more of heaviness and dull pain. Bimanual examination ultrasound reveal the cause of pelvic pain. So submucous fibroids cause colicky pain might be because of torsion, and interstitial fibroids, that is which occupy the myometrium, may cause dysmenorrhea. And ovarian cyst or ovarian tumor. Ovarian cyst or tumor does not normally cause any chronic pelvic pain unless it is associated with unless the cyst or the tumor is large in size, compressing the other pelvic organs, in which case the patient notices the swelling first. So if it is large enough, then the swelling is first noted rather than the pain. And a dermoid cyst may cause dull pain due to infection or gradual torsion of its pedicle, and malignant tumor is usually silent until the last stage, advanced stages. So what is residual ovarian syndrome or remnant ovary syndrome? Residual ovary syndrome is seen when one or both of the ovaries are left at the time of hysterectomy, develops adhesions. So the ovaries those are left during hysterectomy, they develop adhesions. They develop usually in every cycle the ovary develops follicular cysts. So follicles, Graafian follicles. So here the ovary develops follicular cysts and hemorrhages. This causes chronic pelvic pain and dyspareunia. So because of cyclical development of follicular cysts and hemorrhages, there is increased aggravated cyclical pain, which is present along with chronic pelvic pain. So cyclical pain is also present in residual ovarian syndrome, and the treatment is oral contraceptive pills or GnRH agonists which prevent ovulation, and extensive and dense adhesions may require surgical removal of the ovaries and hormone replacement therapy. So dysmenorrhea. Congestive dysmenorrhea is present in endometriosis, PID and uterine fibroids. It is felt as a dull ache in the lower abdominal pain a few days before menstruation. Congestive dysmenorrhea is present few days before menstruation, whereas spasmodic dysmenorrhea is present during menstruation. It is congestive dysmenorrhea is because of increased vascular supply and because of pathology in the uterus. So it is felt as a dull ache in the lower abdomen a few days before menstruation, and it is relieved with the menstrual flow. The woman may also complain of backache and heaviness in the lower abdomen. Dysmenorrhea is related to menstrual cycles. So ovulation pain or Middlemar's pain. Ovulation pain occurs in the mid-cycle and is often acute, but at times it is sharp pain followed by dull pain lasting for several hours. It may be due to rupture of Graafian follicle, but is often felt at the time of luteinizing hormone peak, LH peak, 24, that is 24 hours before ovulation. It is postulated to be due to contractility of the ovarian perifollicular smooth muscle mediated through prostaglandin F2 alpha, in which case anti-inflammatory drugs are effective. So here anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, are useful. Chronic pelvic pain syndrome. Chronic pelvic pain syndrome is a condition not associated with any clinical evidence of pelvic pathology, whereas in CPP pelvic pathology might be present, whereas in chronic pelvic pain syndrome it is not associated with any clinical evidence of pelvic pathology. At laparoscopy, pelvic veins are seen dilated and some are associated with venous stasis. The woman is often of the reproductive age. So chronic pelvic pain usually occurs in the reproductive age, is of reproductive age, and complaints of dull aching pain in the lower abdomen, and in rare cases severe pain which responds to postural adjustment. Lying flat relieves or reduces pain, whereas standing, walking and bending worsens the pain. Because while in walking, standing and bending, there is increased pelvic pressure, like there is gravity, so that pelvic congestion occurs in pelvic varicosities. So they increase the pain. Other associated symptoms are congestive dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, and postcoital ache. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is seen in 50% and menorrhagia is seen in half the number of cases. Shifting of location of the pain with the body movement is characteristic of this syndrome. Doppler ultrasonography or venography are helpful in the diagnosis. So intestinal chronic lower abdominal pain is related to intestines, and sigmoid colon is associated with irritable bowel syndrome and bowel syndrome such as constipation, chronic diarrhea and colicky pain. Sigmoid colon pain is felt in the left iliac fossa, lasts a few minutes to few hours. And intestinal colic is often related to food and is accompanied by flatulence. Appendicitis present with chronic pelvic pain in the right iliac fossa only. And irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease are not uncommon in women between 30 to 40 years of age and may be associated with pelvic congestion syndrome. So diagnosis is by stool examination for amoebiasis or sigmoidoscopy or colonoscopy and barium enema, which may reveal the cause of abdominal pain. Irritable bowel syndrome responds to rotavirine, that is smooth muscle relaxant, and mepivaline. Urinary tract, the causes are urinary tract infection, that is cystitis and bladder stones cause chronic pelvic pain but are associated with urinary symptoms, dysuria, frequency and urgency. Chronic retention of urine caused by the bladder neck obstruction or pelvic tumor cause chronic pelvic pain in suprapubic region and difficulty in passing urine. A full bladder is palpable in the suprapubic region and catheterization will empty the bladder and relieve the discomfort. Urine culture, cystoscopy, radiography of the pelvis for any stone, and that is X-ray, and ultrasound are useful in the diagnostic procedures. So psychological factors. Some of the women with chronic pelvic pain appear neurotic, and this was considered to be the cause in women with chronic pelvic pain. In neurosis, a patient with neurosis may develop chronic pelvic pain, and in many cases, neurosis is the result of chronic pelvic pain and not vice versa. So it is stated that the CPP causes neurosis, and the neurosis does not result in any chronic pelvic pain. Some elements of neurosis may eventually contribute to exaggeration of the symptoms. So here for psychological factors, treatment is antidepressants. Antidepressants don't relieve the pain in majority of these women, though when given along with the medications do not elevate neurosis. So psychotherapy may also be useful. Musculoskeletal pain or skeletal muscular pain. There is ilioinguinal nerve may be trapped in a wide phalansteal incision. Phalansteal incision is extends from about 9 to 10 centimeters. So in this long incision, ilioinguinal nerve may be trapped. And post-operative muscle pain is also possible. Trigger points. These trigger points are the points where maximum pain is present in the patient. Trigger points can be located by pressing a finger where the woman complains of pain. Pain following surgery and accidents are obvious cause of chronic pain. Deferred pain from the spine is an identified cause of chronic pelvic pain. And neurological, there might be nerve entrapment or neuropathic pain. In nerve entrapment, nerves may be entrapped in the scar tissue or edge of the rectus muscle. That is ilioinguinal nerve or genitofemoral nerve, cutaneous nerves may be entrapped. And in neuropathic pain, involvement of the pelvic nerves in the fibrotic diseases such as endometriosis and infiltration by malignancy, and in pain syndromes, neuropathic pain might be present. That is in fibrotic diseases such as endometriosis or in malignancy and pain syndromes. So history, we have when we take the history, age of the patient, age is it is common in reproductive age group, and the onset, type, duration, and location of the pain will provide the guidance to the probable cause of pain. And radiation of pain and its relation to menstruation is also important. Obstetric and sexual history are significant. History of intrauterine contraceptive devices suggests pelvic infection, and associated urinary and bowel symptoms should be inquired. Some women with chronic pelvic pain also complain of dysmenorrhea and dyspareunia. So history, concisely, when we take history, we have to ask about the location of the pain using a pain diagram, or precipitating factors, that is posture, prolonged standing, and the aggravation of pain at the end of the day. And the character or type of pain, that is throbbing or pricking pain, the nature of the pain should be asked for. Distribution of the pain, CPP is usually in lower abdomen, low back, thigh and pelvis. And the intensity of pain, is it associated with any other symptoms like dyspareunia, dysmenorrhea, frequent dysuria and bowel symptoms. And history of any gynecological disorders like endometriosis, PID or tuberculosis. History of surgery, that is hysterectomy or lumpectomy should be elicited. And history of any psychiatric disorders. So we can remember using a mnemonic that regarding pain, what we have to ask for. That is old cards. Old is onset of pain, location of pain, distribution, character or type of pain, and aggravating factors and in associated symptoms, and radiation of the pain, and temporality. Temporality, like in which part of the day is the pain is more, and the severity of the pain. So past history of tuberculosis and psychiatric problems will help. History of cancer in the finally will suggest probable cancer in the family, will suggest probable cancer phobia in the woman. General examination will reveal lymphadenopathy, tuberculosis, anemia, and swelling of feet. Abdominal mass, ascites, and tenderness suggests organic lesion. So vaginal discharge. Vaginal discharge is seen in pelvic inflammatory diseases. So coming to examination, bimanual examination is necessary to rule out any organic pelvic lesions like fibroid or ovarian cysts. Rectal examination may reveal a mass or a stricture, and pain and restriction of the joint movement suggests deferred pain to the pelvis. And tenderness in the pelvis is caused by endometriosis, adenomyosis, pelvic adhesions, PID, diverticulitis, and urinary infection. Tenderness in the pelvis could be elicited by vaginal examination or bimanual or rectal examination. Ovarian pain is located at junction of the middle and the inner two-thirds of the line between anterior superior iliac spine and the umbilicus, and tenderness can be elicited here. So briefly, in physical examination, what we do is general examination of the patient and abdominal examination for any presence of any abdominal or pelvic mass, and to elicit the trigger points, and perspectivum examination to find out any vaginal discharge in case of chronic or acute PID. And pelvic or bimanual examination is done to elicit presence of pelvic mass and uterine or any adnexal tenderness or any pelvic tenderness. And rectal examination, it is used to see the laxity of the uterosacral ligaments, and also useful in diagnosis of endometriosis. Examination of the lumbar spine and the sacroiliac joint is done to elicit for any musculoskeletal causes. So investigations, a firm diagnosis and cause of pain cannot always be elicited clinically. Ultrasound, diagnostic laparoscopy, Doppler ultrasound for pelvic congestion, urine test, barium enema, colonoscopy, sigmoidoscopy, radiography of the joints, and intravenous pyelography will be needed in accordance with the patient history and examination. CT and MRI may be useful in some cases, and MRI can miss a small nodule, but it picks up rectovaginal endometriosis. So, laparoscopy detects small nodules of endometriosis which are undetected clinically. It can detect pelvic adhesions and small inflammatory masses apart from the obvious pelvic pathology. So, the laparoscopy is both therapeutic and diagnostic. Therapeutic treatment can be applied in the same sitting, such as adhesiolysis or cauterization of endometriosis. Pelvic venous congestion and dilated vessels are not always revealed under laparoscopy because of the head lobe position and the pressure because of pneumoperitoneum created for laparoscopy. So a poor correlation between microscopic view and histological evidence exists at laparoscopy, and the diagnosis can be missed if the peritoneal biopsies are not taken. The burnt out healed areas of endometriosis can also cause chronic pelvic pain. That is, even if endometriosis is treated, it may cause chronic pelvic pain because of fibrosis and entrapment of nerves. Even if pelvic pathology is detected at laparoscopy, that is a fibroid or a small ovarian cyst or adhesions, it may not be the real cause of chronic pelvic pain. It could be just a coincidental finding. So, conscious pain mapping at diagnostic laparoscopy under local anesthesia is useful at deciding the cause and the location of chronic pelvic pain. So when laparoscopy fails, so laparoscopy is the gold standard for the diagnosis and treatment of chronic pelvic pain. When laparoscopy fails to reveal any pathology and pelvic congestion is suspected to be the cause of pelvic pain, transuterine pelvic venography is performed by injecting the dye myometrically. So the dye is injected into the myometrium and transuterine pelvic venography is done, or pelvic venography using contrast medium may also be done. So in pelvic congestion syndrome, dilated ovarian and uterine vessels with the delayed clearance of the dye are observed. Just like our varicose veins in the legs, there is delayed clearance of the dye within the ovarian and the uterine vessels. And histoscopy picks up any intrauterine lesions. So briefly, the investigations to be done are full blood count, VDRL, urine analysis and culture, vaginal swab for culture, and ultrasonography, that is both abdominal and transvaginal ultrasonography to diagnose any endometriosis, tubo-ovarian mass, adenomyosis or residual or remnant ovary. And the urological and gastrointestinal evaluation has to be done, that is cystoscopy, etc., sigmoidoscopy, colonoscopy, and laparoscopy. Laparoscopy is used to treat and diagnose endometriosis and other conditions like pelvic congestion syndrome, adhesions, and pelvic inflammatory diseases. MRI and CT scan may be done. Variant studies may be done for gastrointestinal causes, and venography and cystoscopy could be done. So briefly, investigations are blood investigations and imaging. So management. The detection of pelvic pathology or the cause of pain determines the therapy appropriate for the cause. Negative investigations at least assure the woman of no serious condition prevails and cancer phobia can be eliminated. Diagnostic laparoscopy remains the gold standard when the woman fails to hormones. The problem, however, remains when no cause is found. Doppler ultrasonography or pelvic venography will demonstrate the dilated veins. Treatment comprises progesterone therapy or hysterectomy. So the main line of treatment is medical management is progesterone or hysterectomy. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs NSAIDs are effective in mild cases. GnRH can shrink endometriosis and the pelvic veins. The rationale behind progesterone treatment is that estrogen causes dilatation of the pelvic vessels and progesterone. And progesterones, by their anti-estrogenic effect, constrict the veins, reduce the blood flow, and suppress ovulation. So progesterones cause constriction of the veins, reduce the blood flow, and suppress ovulation. So the chief line of treatment is to decrease the vascular supply towards the uterus and the ovary. So medroxyprogesterone acetate (MDPA) up to 30 milligrams daily, Provera, is given for 9 to 12 months, which reduces the pelvic pain. But unfortunately, pain may recur after stoppage of the drug, and the prolonged therapy can produce side effects such as increase in the body weight, pain, bloating, and menstrual irregularity. Thus, it is not desirable. So, breast cancer is also a side effect of prolonged progesterone therapy. Micronized progesterone is a natural progesterone available in India. Its trade name is Utrogestan 100 milligram oral and vaginal tablet. So micronized progesterone oral tablets are toxic to the liver since it is natural progesterone, and in women with liver damage, vaginal tablets are preferred. Because it causes dizziness in few cases, one tablet daily is advocated at the bedtime for 10 days in premenstrual phase. For premenstrual tension syndrome also, one tablet twice daily is recommended for 10 days premenstrually. Alternative to prolonged progesterone therapy, which causes systemic side effects besides the inconvenience of daily administration, is Mirena IUCD. Mirena IUCD is very effective in relieving pain, and it is effective over 5 years if needed. So once this can be left in place for 5 years, and besides it acts as a contraceptive when the woman is not desirous of pregnancy. So other modality is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that is fluoxetine, SSRIs, fluoxetine 10 to 60 milligram daily, or sertraline 50 to 200 milligram. Other drugs useful in some cases. So the diameter of the pelvic veins was reduced and the pain relieved for 48 hours after intravenous injection of diethyl ergometrin. Diethyl ergometrin is a vasoconstrictive agent which causes venoconstriction. So diameter of the pelvic veins, and the pain is relieved within 48 hours after administration of diethyl ergometrin injection. So diethyl ergometrin causes vasoconstriction of the veins and reduces pelvic congestion. Ligation of the ovarian veins has been attempted with variable results. Hysterectomy and bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy may be resorted to if the drug therapy fails in elderly women. So briefly, what are the drugs used in medical management are NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and the drugs for ovarian suppression, that is having anti-estrogenic effect, are medroxyprogesterone acetate 30 to 50 milligram orally daily, or 150 milligram intramuscularly every 3 months, or combined low-dose oral contraceptive pills which inhibit ovulation, or GnRH analogs which have anti-estrogenic effect and which decrease the vascular supply towards the ovary and the uterus. That is GnRH analog is leuprolide 3.6 milligram once in 28 days, and antidepressants which can be used are amitriptyline 25 to 50 milligram daily, fluoxetine 20 milligram daily, or sertraline 50 to 100 milligram daily. And gabapentin, it is used to relieve pain. It may be 300 milligrams 2 to 3 times per day could be given. Levonorgestrel containing intrauterine device, that is our Mirena, could be used. Psychotherapy alone or combined with the drugs will be useful in pelvic pain syndrome and in irritable bowel syndrome. Acupuncture, shortwave diathermy are adjuvants and are effective in some women. Presacral neurectomy and laparoscopic uterosacral nerve ablation are recommended in intractable pain in young women. So other modalities are psychotherapy, acupuncture, and shortwave diathermy, and presacral neurectomy or laparoscopic uterosacral nerve ablation. So LUNA, that is laparoscopic uterosacral nerve ablation, is sometimes associated with prolapse and in bladder dysfunction. So ureteric damage can also occur. Presacral neurectomy causes bleeding and hematoma. So other therapies are static magnetic therapy for 4 weeks, or transcutaneous nerve stimulation helps in some cases, and conscious pain mapping may be done. In varicosity of the pelvic veins have been treated with embolization of the ovarian vessels, or laparoscopic injection of the sclerosing agent, that is sclerotherapy using 5% ethanolamine maleate, or gel forms and coils may also be used. So, in pelvic congestion syndrome, we may use embolization of ovarian vessels or laparoscopic injection of sclerosing agents, that is sclerotherapy, that is using 5% ethanolamine maleate, or gel forms and coils may also be used. Conscious pain mapping involves laparoscopy and local anesthesia and interaction with the woman on touching the individual organ to localize the organ of pain. So this will improve the diagnostic accuracy. So briefly, what is the surgical management we follow is adhesiolysis. It is useful in moderate to severe vascular adhesions, whereas in mild adhesions it is not useful. Oophorectomy, residual or remnant ovary syndrome, and the hysterectomy and the hysterectomy plus oophorectomy, they are useful in stage 3 or 4 endometriosis. Presacral neurectomy and laparoscopic petrosacral nerve ablation, they are useful in endometriosis and in unexplained pain. And ovarian vein embolization is useful in pelvic congestion syndrome. So backache. Backache is one of the accompanying symptoms in the following gynecological diseases, that is pelvic endometriosis, pelvic adhesions, PID and fixed retroverted uterus, prolapsed genital tract and uterine fibers. Orthopedic cause, in the absence of the above, backache due to gynecological causes is limited to below the, it is usually orthopedic low backache is usually below the fourth lumbar spine, that is below elbow, and it is diffuse and it cannot be pinpointed to a spot. So what are the other interventions apart from medical and surgical management? Are static magnetic therapy, ultrasound therapy, trigger point injections, acupuncture, transcutaneous electric nerve stimulation, and photographic reinforcement. So I will take just 5 more minutes to brief it. So, according to definition, CTP is a cyclical pain occurring for more than 6 months, and it is unrelated to menstruation, intercourse, or pregnancy. It is continuous or intermittent. The location of pain is below the at or below the level of umbilicus up till the buttocks. So etiology might be gynecological or non-gynecological. Gynecological endometriosis, PID, adhesions, adenomyosis, ovarian remnant syndrome or trapped ovary syndrome, or pelvic congestion syndrome. Non-gynecological might be urological or gastrointestinal, musculoskeletal and neurological causes. So gynecological causes are endometriosis, PID, adhesions, adenomyosis, ovarian remnant syndrome, pelvic congestion syndrome. Non-gynecological, that is urological causes are interstitial cystitis, urethral syndrome, and chronic or recurrent UTI. Gastrointestinal are irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease, or musculoskeletal conditions, and neurological conditions, maybe because of neuropathy or nerve entrapment. So clinical features and their associated symptoms are. So in history, what we have to take is history is common reproductive age group, and in history what we have to elicit is old cards, that is onset, location, distribution, character of the pain, that is type of the pain and aggravating factors, and associated symptoms and radiation of the pain, temporality, that is in which part of the day it is more, and severity of the pain. And in physical examination, what we do is general examination, abdominal examination, perspection, bimanual examination, perirectal examination, examination of the lumbar spine and sacroiliac joints, which is to differentiate between our musculoskeletal pain and pelvic pain. And low backache without any gynecological causes usually occurs below L4. So the investigations what we do are full blood count, VDRL, urine analysis and the culture, vaginal swab for culture to rule out PID, ultrasonography, both abdominal and transvaginal. It is used to rule out endometriosis, tubo-ovarian mass, adenomyosis and residual or remnant ovary syndrome. Urological and gastrointestinal evaluation has to be done. Laparoscopy, it is both diagnostic and therapeutic, and it is the gold standard. We diagnose endometriosis, pelvic congestion syndrome, adhesion and PID. MRI and CT scan and barium studies may be done. Venography for pelvic congestion syndrome and cystoscopy has to be done. So under management, there is medical, surgical and other interventions. So medical management, our main aim is to have any anti-estrogenic effect, which is also the treatment for endometriosis. So for pain relief, we use NSAIDs, and for in NSAIDs, in dysmenorrhea, we will do antispasmodics are the drugs of choice, whereas in other pain, it is NSAIDs are the drugs of choice. So, drug for ovarian suppression are MDPA, methoxyprogesterone acetate, and 30 to 50 milligrams orally daily or 150 milligram intramuscular every 3 months. Combined dosage may be used. GnRH analogs may be used. Antidepressants are SSRI inhibitors, that is sertraline and fluoxetine may be used. Gabapentin and levonorgestrel containing IUCD may be used. So what is the surgical management? There is a dystolysis, oophorectomy, hysterectomy plus oophorectomy, presacral neurectomy, LUMNA, and ovarian vein embolization or sclerotherapy may also be used. So what are the other interventions are static magnetic therapy, ultrasound therapy, trigger point injections, acupuncture and transcutaneous electric nerve ablation, and stimulation and photographic reinforcement. So what is important here is pelvic congestion syndrome and ovarian remnant syndrome or residual ovary syndrome. You have to learn this. So thank you.